Joining us now is the author and pop culture pundit Mark O'Connell. Good afternoon to you. So your immediate reaction to the news of Sir Sean Connery's passing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a blow. I mean, it's a blow for Bond and Bond fans and Bond cinema, but it's also a massive blow for Britain and the movies. It's very important to not underestimate the role that Connery has brought to this British movie scene. I mean, we actually don't have many British movie stars, certainly now. You know, Michael Caine, Terence Stamp back in the day, but Connery was not just one of the first big new era movie stars. He was also one of the first action movie stars, because Bond, that first Dr. No film, 1962, it revolutionized action cinema, and you can see the DNA of Connery and what he achieved in that all the way through, through from Marvel and Jason Bourne and all the stuff we're looking at now.
And, of course, the first to take on this role, and for many, the best.
Yes. Yeah, he was the first on-screen cinematic Bond. There was a TV Bond and a radio Bond before that, but obviously Connery was the first one that just, put that icon, that spy icon. As soon as he walked across frame in Dr. No, there was something a little bit new era, new decade. And that's something as well that Connery represented. We kind of had our David Nivens and our Stuart Grangers and our Cary Grant heroes, and then suddenly early 60s, late 50s, and pushed by Cubby Broccoli, the Bond producer, and his colleague Harry Saltzman, they pushed this new era of British, sometimes working class, angry young men, they were sometimes called, and it would, your Terence Stamps, your Michael Caine's, your Alan Bates, and then Sean Connery. And Sean Connery kind of brought that movement to the masses. Not everyone knew Alan Bates, not everyone knew Terence Stamp, but the world and his wife and their mother and their nephew knew Sean Connery, whether it was, in a drive-in in Texas or, a cinema against a church in France. People knew Sean Connery.
Interestingly, the Bond producers had looked to Cary Grant, but they wanted somebody who could commit to a series, and they chose this Brit.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Connery was kind of on the cusps of something. He'd already been in one or two Hollywood movies in the late 50s, early 60s, and he got noticed particularly by Lana Turner, one of the great golden era movie actresses, who just saw some potential. And then Lana Turner purportedly introduced Connery to the two producers, and particularly Cubby Broccoli and his wife Dana Broccoli. Dana took an eye on Connery. She could see also what the women and perhaps the non-straight audiences could see in Connery, this rugged, fresh masculinity. And whilst Bond always got accused, particularly in that first decade or two, of sexism and a bit of flesh, people underestimate the hot casting of Connery. He was there, as a major screen idol force of masculinity, and he was kind of hot. I always remember my mother going, "Yeah, he's hot," and I didn't see it for a long time. But yeah, I think that was also a factor as well.
And widely regarded as a sex symbol after he left the role in the early 80s.
Yeah, never underestimate a man losing his hair with a good Scottish accent, which I'm hoping might do me good in times to come. But yeah, he dabbled with other films whilst he did Bond, and he did get a bit restless with the role. That's gone on many records, but he kind of, he oddly bounced back to the role almost as many times as he flicked it away. And I think that actually, yes, money talks, but it also shows there's a warmth and a loyalty and a pride over the role. So yes, whilst in the 70s he did these perhaps more socially motivated thrillers, and then I think the 80s, oddly, we think of Connery as this beast of 60s cinema, and I think Bond's Connery was. But Connery himself in the 80s suddenly did, in Name of the Rose. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a massively important film in the Connery timeline. Spielberg wanted to work with him. So Connery had this great, slightly old romantic lead career in the 80s and 90s, which, he may have pressed that ejector seat on the role of Bond way too many times, but he kind of was always the Bond that rose the highest with it.
All right, Mark O'Connell, thank you for your tribute this afternoon and for joining us here on Sky News. Many thanks.